Hello, everybody, and a very warm welcome to today's Africam Show powered by explore.org. It is Tuesday, the 21st of July, and here in South Africa, at least, it is 4 o'clock in the afternoon. So it is time to spend the next 45 minutes visiting a variety of our cameras dotted around the continent and catching up with all that is going on. This show is, of course, live and interactive, and we always love it when you send in your questions and comments. So please continue to do so. We'll mention your name, we'll read out your questions, and more importantly, I will do my best to answer what I can. But I'm sure it's going to be a great show. We have started out at Jack's camp in Botswana with a lone elephant bull who is doing what I think most people would like to do in these dry conditions, which is having a little paddle in the water. In fact, it almost looks as if he's having a little doze standing up with his snorkel out. But best place to be, I suggest. But we've got a few people greeting already. Amber CO, great to have you back again. Casper's Third Ghost saying happy Tuesday. You've got some cold water ready for the ride. You're taking a leaf out of the elephant's book, but very important, stay hydrated, particularly over here in the dry season. Hello to Jean Gale from the west slopes of the Cascades near Seattle. I hope that you are all calming down after the furore of the World Cup over there. Much enjoyment, although as a native Englishman, we won't discuss the World Cup and what may or may not have happened. Zephyr Blue Paddy, hello to you as well. Hello to Josh Drown. Oh, Josh Drown, this is your last show for 10 weeks. You're going to Alaska on Sunday. That is amazing. That has always been on my bucket list. I would love to get up to Alaska one day. I'm actually going to visit the States, not quite next month, in September, which I'm very excited about. It'll be the first time I've ever been to the States, going to the Grand Canyon, Zion National Park, Death Valley, to see some of those areas of natural beauty, which I'm very excited about. But Alaska definitely on the list as well. So, Josh Drown, hope you have an amazing time. Hello to April Owl as well from a stormy Connecticut with a cherry iced tea. DNC, you're also with us. You've got a cup of coffee to start the day. And Rolling Trouble is joining us from Washington, also with a coffee. I myself have water. I also think that is a good thing to do. Um, and as does this elephant, who seems to be rather stoic in this pan. He's not exactly putting on a tremendous show for us, but this is a nice way to spend the day. You can see just how dry the bush is getting now. We've had, as many of you are aware, a somewhat wet year thus far in the Lowveld area, at least nearly double the average rainfall. And it's been very interesting to see just how green the bush has stayed for a long period of time. But winter is very much taken hold now. We are within its grips. I was in Kruger National Park yesterday, and it's amazing how quickly the bush has dried out, although there is still plenty of standing water and rushing water in a lot of the rivers. The Crocodile River, the Sabi River are still flowing nicely. So hopefully that means it won't be too much of a tough time for the next few months for the animals down here, at least. But you can see that beautiful golden color of the grass now. Oh dear, is this elephant going to destroy one of these trees? What's wrong, buddy? Are you showing off or are you trying to get some food? I'm not quite sure what that is. If it's one of the palms by the looks of the trunk, maybe trying to dislodge some fruit. Of course, this time of year, elephants are trying to find anything. There is not much sustenance in that dry grass. So they will be looking for roots, for tubers. Certainly, the fruits from a palm would be a good way forward as well. What else we have? Ludovic from Cape Town. Somebody a little closer to home. And hello to Mindy Tillepower as well. You're saying the Western US is gorgeous and I will love it. I hope so, Mindy. I hope so. I'm very excited. So I've never been to the States before. I've never crossed the Atlantic. And I'm actually going with my father, which will be nice. It was on his bucket list to do the Grand Canyon, which he's never done. And I said, well, neither have I. So maybe we should go together. And whilst I may find it a bit of a shock to the senses, I have to claim as well that we will be stopping off in Vegas. It will be silly to go all that way and not visit Vegas, which I think will be a little too peoply for what I'm used to, but I'm sure it will be exciting nonetheless. Hello to Jess is not normal. I'm glad you are able to make it today because you've been too ill to make any other events. Oh dear. Jess, well, I hope you're feeling better. I assume you are if you are able to join us. So I hope you continue to head in the right direction. Dan Powers, you're also in touch. Also excited for my visit to Arizona. Hopefully, I'll get to the north rim of the Grand Canyon. I believe so. I think it's all planned. I can't remember the itinerary off the top of my head. It's going to be a lot of driving, but I'm excited to see all the sights. The only downside of the trip, if that is such a thing, is that I'm going over the full moon period, so I won't be able to get any nice nightscapes and Milky Way photos and things from those beautiful dark sky areas. But that's not the main reason to go. I am going very much for the natural beauty and to see specifically the Grand Canyon and all the surrounding areas. ALBH, she wants to know how you can tell if an elephant is pregnant. Um, you have to look at them, ALBH, to be honest. Elephants are, they're relatively rotund at the best of times, but you can see a pregnant female. She is just a little, it's always terrible to say it, but a little wider than otherwise, just sort of a swollen belly, as is not unexpected when you've got a 100 or so kilogram fetus developing inside you for a couple of years. So you'll only really notice it towards the end of the pregnancy. I couldn't tell you exactly at what months it becomes visually obvious. Probably, maybe about 6 months or so to go, you'd start noticing that a cow is a little wider than she perhaps otherwise would have been. But there are no obvious other telltale signs. But say one or two extra Ellies joining us now. Mindy, you're saying there's lots to do in Vegas, even if you don't gamble. Check out the Sphere zip lining in Fremont Street. Well, that sounds exciting. I have to, I'm sure I will gamble. I am not a gambler by trade, but I can't go to Vegas and not. I'm sure I'll have a little dabble whilst I am there. But yeah, very much looking forward to it, seeing some of the shows, enjoying the hospitality and some of the amazing foods and restaurants, sights and sounds. So it will be a shock to the senses, but great memories, I'm sure. Okay, but this is a beautifully idyllic scene. I'm loving the colors, the contrast of the blue and the red. It almost looks like the deserts of Namibia. Those, of course, on the color wheel, blue and orange opposite one another. There's something very attractive about the combination of those colors. But I think we are going to head over to the hide where we have some mischievous baboons. Always great enjoyment watching baboons. Let's see what they get up to. So obviously it looks a little greener there, but the baboons again this time of year looking for food best they can. You'll often actually see them in the water pulling out any sort of aquatic vegetation to try and find bits and pieces, insects, whatever else they can get those grubby little mitts onto. Sound something tasty by the looks of it. Saw a few troops of baboons on my trip through the park yesterday. I had a long drive, actually. I was commuting, but really added certainly a little bit of extra time to the commute, but beats normal traffic, that's for sure. I saw a variety of elephants. Look at the way it's all backlit. It's beautiful, isn't it? With all the fur sticking out. Yeah, plenty of elephants, but by far and away the highlight yesterday was a coalition of two male cheetahs, one of whom was collared, but had a glorious sighting of them, and just one of those moments of good fortune where I sort of took a gamble as to where they might come out of the long grass and park quite close to a marula tree, and they came up to within probably only about 5 or 6 meters of the car, and they were sniffing around and scent marking. Absolutely glorious sighting I had of them for about 15 minutes. Wandering in the road, one even jumped up onto one of those signboards on the side of the road by the park as well. Really spectacular. I just love the way they sit there. They are so human, aren't they, in their behavior? I think so. Imagine them being at a buffet. Just, oh, yeah, I'll try a little bit of that. Pass me the platter. Yeah, that looks nice. Not so keen on that one. What else have we got? Looks like a vegetarian platter for today, though. Those delicate little fingers that they've got, but say huge strength in those arms. They may not always look it, but say, please do not mess with a baboon. They are freakishly strong for their size and can be aggressive under the wrong situation. You say you certainly don't want to argue with a baboon. I always say if a baboon does get hold of your food, you just say, well, fair enough, enjoy. Do not try and get it back. It is not worth the risk. In sizes, sorry, canine teeth longer than that of a lion, and say quite capable of ripping cupboard doors off hinges and things. This one looks to have very long, straight legs. Having a little pick around perhaps in that elephant dung there, a good chance to find a few insects. Of course, not so many around this time of year, but excellent protein as and when they can find it. Bridget McKinney, will the baboons eat freshwater crabs? Bridget McKinney, officially, I don't know, but I see no reason why they would not. They pretty much will eat anything else. Um, how they would find them, I don't know, but I've never seen it, but I see no reason why they wouldn't if they can find them. We do see them sort of filtering around in the water there, so I'm sure if they do come across them, they would grab them, and why not? Who doesn't like a little bit of crab meat? They're an interesting thing, freshwater crabs, though. It's one of those things we don't really give much thought of that sort of aquatic life out here, particularly during the winter. But over the years, I have had the occasional mud wallow to demonstrate exactly how the animals do it. Always surprised, actually, once you get over the ick factor of getting into some fairly fetid water, it's surprisingly soothing in there. The mud is incredibly smooth. It's a lovely exfoliant. It feels great on the skin, but you do find some unusual things in there. I've been splashing around, say, demonstrating before the idea of mud bathing. And I have indeed discovered freshwater crabs, water scorpions, which certainly did suggest that I might want to get out, but I stuck with it. Thankfully, nobody pinched anything that they shouldn't. Water scorpions as well, just in case anybody is not aware, they are not they don't have a sting, even though they do look as if they have a tail like a standard scorpion. That's actually their breathing tube, but they are not venomous and they do pose no threat whatsoever. However, I've no doubt a freshwater crab could give you a nasty pinch if needs be. Time for a little groom. I think while we leave these baboons to their ablutions, we will head up to Kenya to Old Donyo, and it sounds like we've got a variety of animals enjoying the water there. Beautiful giraffes, elephants, and some eland as well. I saw an amazing clip online a couple of days ago. I've no idea how old it was or where it was taken of an eland basically attacking a car, headbutting a vehicle. So much so that at one point it actually rammed the back end of the car with such force that it shattered the windscreen, even though it sort of hit around the where the petrol cap is. Evidently, the force that it hit the car was enough to break the windscreen. Not an antelope that we generally think of as being particularly aggressive. They are not aggressive, but hugely powerful. So a lot of people surprised to hear just or see just how big a massive eland bull can get, weighing in around about the same as a buffalo, maybe 900 kilograms perhaps. That's a lot of weight to put behind a headbutt. Iggy, you said you saw a video yesterday of a baby hippo being born. Wow, that's pretty spectacular. I don't think we'll find any hippos in this little waterhole at Old Donyo, but just to see any animal giving birth is a beautiful sight, as is watching, say, the uncoordinated grace of giraffes having a drink. I have I ever seen an animal actually give birth? Just trying to think back over a couple of decades. I've seen a few impalas that are still, wet from afterbirth. I've seen a breached buffalo birth where unfortunately the youngster didn't make it and neither did mum. But I don't think I've ever actually seen the moment of birth, except my guinea pig when I was a child. I remember watching my guinea pig give birth at one point, but that was a very, very long time ago. But very, very special. Baby hippos are beautiful, tiny little things in comparison. Normally only around sort of 30 to 40 kilograms at birth. They can afford to be a lot smaller than a white rhino, for example, which will weigh the same as an adult hippo. But when giving birth and spending most of one's time in the water as a babe, it just means that less musculature needs to develop, as well as the skeletal structure doesn't need to be as strong because of the buoyancy of the water. So the sponge giraffe has just taken up residence right in the middle. And so very tolerant elephants by all accounts. So I suppose it would be poignant to mention, since we are at Old Onyo, of course, we still greatly miss One Ton. I don't believe there's any new news in terms of his demise, still being put down to natural causes. But it is a shame that we will not watch this waterhole in the hope that that magnificent boy will come and visit. It's a bit of a role reversal, the giraffe monopolizing the dam and the elephants watching on. And flick. There we go again. Always great if you're going to try and photograph giraffes having a drink. Try and time it when they release the tension in their neck, and you get that beautiful sort of S of water that they spill out of their mouth when they do. Remember when they bend down to drink, they're actually stretching what we call the nuchal ligament that runs from the base of the skull right the way down the nape of the neck. And that's how they actually hold their head up. It doesn't cost them any energy to keep that heavy head raised on that rather thin neck. That is its natural position. The ligament holds it in place. And then when they bend down to drink, it's a bit like stretching a rubber band. And then when they finish drinking, they kind of release it and the neck pops back up. Quite some force. And that produces that beautiful little S shape of water that they will often spit out. For Blue Patty, you say that it's a draft had to get such a risky stance to drink, and it makes you nervous. It is. It's one of those conundrums of nature, isn't it? I mean, it's wonderful to have this long neck, and it makes food available to you, and important in terms of sexual selection. But at their detriment, drinking water is not easy. So very, very nervous, particularly if on their own approaching water, because they know that is a very vulnerable position to be in, particularly if there may be a predator close by. And so giraffes will always take the opportunity to drink if they can, but they have an incredibly efficient digestive system. Any of you have ever seen little giraffe pellets, giraffe droppings? Almost nothing considering the size of the animal. And so if you break one open, you can just see how well digested the material is. It's almost powder. It's very, very dry, even when it comes out. So the body utilizing all of the moisture so that drinking regularly is not a necessity. They can, of course, go days without water, but this time of year, less water within the vegetation. It does require them to supplement it every now and again. Montenegro, you're also saying, yeah, the elephants are very tolerant of the giraffe today. Yeah, we've seen the elephants quite a few times here, monopolizing that waterhole and chasing off others who want to come and use it. Of course, I remember that famous clip from a few years ago with the elephant that, for want of a better word, kebabbed a giraffe for no particular reason around this waterhole. But these two particularly docile today. This giraffe at least has found a little bit of vegetation. It's much easier to break off the whole branch, I suppose, than pick individual leaves. Leaves, I should say. Right, let's head over to Finch Hatton's over the road in Savo. Beautiful lesser kudu bull, an animal that I've never officially seen. Of course, we have greater kudu down here in southern Africa. I don't think I've ever seen a lesser kudu, even on my trips up into Tanzania. I don't know too much about their specific distribution. Nor would I know if you lined up two next to one another how specifically to tell the difference. These ones look as if they've got slightly more distinctive stripes and more stripes. Whether that's just this individual or the species of a whole, I will have to do a little bit of checking. But a spectacular set of horns. Saw quite a few beautiful greater kudu bulls in the park yesterday. It is one of the nice things about winter. Now the vegetation is finally dying back. Visibility is greatly improved. Animals are under water stress and having to come out in the open to get a sufficient amount of hydration. So I had some lovely kudu sightings of late. But you have the entire screen to play with, and you've decided to hide behind this one little, whatever it is, stump or what's left of a little tree there. Come out. Come on. Thank you. I want to see your beautiful horns. Quite narrow spread. I'm not sure if that is, again, a thing about the lesser kudu. Here, certainly with the greater kudu, you get narrow spread horns like this, and you also get the beautiful wide arcing horns as well. A lot of it, of course, is genetics, but some of it, to some extent, dictated by the region in which they are found. You normally find here in the Kruger area quite a few kudu bulls do have quite narrow set horns, which I assume is an adaptation to living in a slightly more shrubby environment where having big wide horns would actually be a hindrance, getting caught on vegetation. They, of course, will use those horns to bring down vegetation that would be otherwise out of reach. But if we go into the more open areas of southern Africa, you generally find much wider spread horns. So I assume a regional difference just due to habitat. JJ, could a greater and a lesser kudu breed together if they were in the same area? JJ, if I'm honest, I have no idea whatsoever. I don't see why not. I imagine they are close enough that it wouldn't cause a huge genetic problem. That's just an educated guess. I've never heard of it happening. I suppose that would then produce a medium kudu. um, but I would think it's possible. But it will be interesting to know whether or not it has occurred. I'll see what I can find out. I think I'm also doing the show on. Am I doing the show on Thursday? I think I might be. In which case, I will try and get back to you. Where am I? Yes, I am doing the show on Thursday, Wild Moments. So I'll try and make a note to do a little bit of digging of interbreeding between greater and lesser to produce medium produce. And look how those disruptive markings are so good at just helping the animal disappear. If it was completely stationary there, a surprisingly good camouflage mechanism. Very symmetrical horns as well. You see at side on there, one horn completely disappears behind the other, like they are perfect carbon copies of each other. Look at where the twists start and finish. And when this bull goes side on, so one horn completely disappears. Not something I've necessarily noticed in the past with kudus here. And just as not normal, you're loving the way that they do spiral. They are beautiful, aren't they? They are really magnificent creatures. I know when speaking of my father, and so our trip together soon, his two favorite animals are cheetahs and kudu bulls. He's got a real thing about them. They are such regal looking antelope. So graceful, powerful, graceful, and beautiful. Little noises from some guinea fowl close by. Richard McKinney, you are saying lesser kudus are more striped. I certainly thought so, looking at that. There are more stripes and they look a little bit more defined than the kudus we have here. And you can see a slightly slighter build as well. Completely disappeared now behind that acacia. Are you going to grace us with your presence on the other side, or are you going to hide in the shadows there? I'm trying to pop out again soon. I'm doing the sort of selective browsing, so not much to choose from at the moment. So you'll see most antelopes doing exactly this, a couple of little nibbles, then move on, a few more little nibbles, move on, keep moving, keep finding more food. Right, but this one seems to have potentially found something nice, maybe having a nibble on that acacia itself. Let's head back over to Old Donya. Looks like giraffe happy hour is beginning to end. Is the female going to come down for a drink? We're going to wade into the middle. There we go. Where's that little flick? That was a very quick one. I think she probably got distracted, just wasn't sure about something, or maybe those oxpeckers just irritating. So for Boo Paddy, you are saying the variation in the different species of antelope is fascinating. I agree, and there are still antelope species here in southern Africa, which I am yet to lay eyes on. I've never seen a Reebok, for example, not the sneaker, not the shoe. But there is something called a RHE Reebok that we have down here. I've never seen one of those. I think I've only ever seen an Orabi once. I did see a Sharps Grijsbok the other day, which is always nice to see. Little rotund things look like sort of a chunky steenbok, the Grijsboks. But yeah, lots and lots of antelopes to choose from. There we go. I don't feel that you quenched your thirst there. Are those oxpeckers bothering you, or say maybe there's something happening? I see a few more coming in. Maybe she's just distracted by the movement. Having a good peer around. But yeah, elephants still seem completely oblivious to all of these giraffe coming and going. It makes you wonder whether, because dry season is in full effect now, whether the animals do become a little more tolerant of each other. Often you'll find animals sort of staking a claim to a waterhole, but the elephants, despite their massive power, particularly these old bulls, are generally pretty docile. Not sure what's going on with those two giraffe at the back. We've got a male possibly pursuing a female. Yep, checking the coast is clear. And bringing, say, stretching that ligament out to move. We'll try again. I didn't think she'd finished. But Devabu, Paddy, back to what you're saying. Yeah, the diversity of antelope is incredible, and people often ask, "What's your favourite antelope species out here?" We get those sorts of questions. What's your favourite animal? What's your favourite antelope? From an antelope perspective, mine has always been the Gemsbok. I just love the markings, the contrasting, the blacks and the whites, and the tan colouring that they have. I think they're beautiful antelope, as well as those saber-like horns that they have. In Faustino, you haven't seen a gerenuk. I forgot about gerenuks. Of course, they don't occur here in southern Africa, but that is a weird looking thing. I'm sort of one of those things that I'm not convinced they even exist until I see one to myself. It's just like somebody grabbed an impala and stretched out its neck somewhat. Yeah, you don't hear much about them, which is surprising considering they're such a unique looking thing. Mindy Tillapau, you saw one in Kenya and also agreeing, a weird looking creature. There's a chance I might actually be going up to Tanzania again towards the end of the year. I'm not sure if they do occur in the area that I'm going, and so I have no idea of their distribution. But I think when I do go up, I will request to the guides that if there is an opportunity, that would be something that I would very much like to see. I'll be going up to do another follow-up on some astronomy training with some of the lodges that I'm working with up there, get them okay with the, or more comfortable at least, with the constellations and help them designing sort of narratives across the night sky based on their area of operation and thinking about what happens when in terms of the ecosystem and the dynamics and the climate during that time of year and how to say spin a nice story that moves across the sky instead of just looking at constellations in isolation, very much like we do from a guiding perspective. We wouldn't just talk about the giraffe or just talk about the elephant. It's how everything is related to each other and links together in the ecosystem as a whole. Right, I think let's head up to the Mara River and have a look at some of those magnificent crocs. Everybody just having a nice lie down. Saw a couple of monstrous crocs In the Crocodile River on my trip yesterday. Very difficult to get an idea of scale from looking at these, but saw one massive one that must have been a good 4 meters, maybe a little bit more, and very, very wide. Yeah, possibly the animal that I respect the most out here. Crocodiles and elephants. A lot of people say, oh, buffalo, don't trust a buffalo and be aware of the buffalo. Agreed. But say, touch wood, that was me knocking on the desk. I've never had a run-in with a buffalo on foot. I'm far more wary of elephants just because of their power, but this thing, never trust a crocodile. And I think it's Kelly who often says if it's bigger than a bathtub, assume there's a crocodile in it, or bigger than I can't remember what she normally says, but if it's bigger than something, you have to assume that there might be a crocodile in there. But nature's perfection, the perfect predator, unchanged for millions, hundreds of millions of years. That in itself should tell you everything you need to know. Well, I say it's that old adage, if it's not broken, don't fix it. They spend most of their time almost motionless, but capable of these incredible bursts of power and moving far more quickly than they're often given credit for. I don't know if some of you saw that amazing clip again. I've no idea how old it was or where it was of it's quite an old leopard who was tiptoeing across some rocks across a river. And suddenly this enormous crocodile, or a good-sized crocodile, suddenly leapt out of the water and tried to grab this leopard, who thankfully still had his wits about him and was able to sort of contort its body and leap out of the way of those jaws. But it's no wonder a lot of antelopes, when they come down to the water, they do look a little nervous. They have to worry about things sneaking up behind them. And the simple fact that there could be a 3 or 4 meter evolutionarily perfect killing machine hiding in the shallow water right in front of their face must be a very disconcerting thought at all times. Reminds me of that funny cartoon or meme or whatever it would be from a few years ago of St. Wildebeest looking at something floating in the water and discussing it with each other and having an argument as to whether it was a log or a crocodile and poking it with a stick to see if it would react. It always makes me chuckle, that one. But yeah, if in doubt, assume there is a croc. Zephyr Blue Paddy is saying it's been great to watch how the crocs deal with the herds crossing the Mara. Yeah, absolutely. Incredible, incredible design, whatever word you want to use, from tip of the snout to the end of the tail. Just perfect for what they do. Capable of going months and months without food, so that they can survive in areas where there is no water. Some say the most advanced heart in the animal kingdom, that foramen of Panizza, which allows them to channel oxygenated blood to the areas that it is required. Their stomach acid content of about that of battery acid, around about pH 1 and a bit, capable of digesting bone and hair and all the other things that most animals wouldn't be able to deal with, yet still showing maternal instinct, looking after their youngsters, carrying their babies down to the water's edge, protecting them. They really are a miracle of creation, these things. Jess is not normal saying, agreeing, they are a peak predator design. Very, very cool. Unless, say, you are unfortunate enough to come face to face with one. I do know a couple of people who've had crocodile incidents. Thankfully, everybody is okay, but one has multiple stitches in their hand where they were grabbed at one point whilst filling up water. Makes you think of that scene out of Crocodile Dundee, but it is a reality. As well, they make no qualms about what they are as well. All those teeth sticking out. That I think it's the fourth tooth there that sticks out and runs alongside the snout. Different, of course, from the alligators. But he's not trying to hide any of those armaments, armor plated, and yeah, a mouth full of teeth constantly being recycled throughout their life, go through hundreds of teeth throughout their lifetimes. A hugely impressive animal. Isn't that beautiful with the reflection as well, making all of those markings perfectly mirrored? Kim Faustina, do you think these crocs are full and sleeping all day long? Yeah, quite possibly. I don't think I've ever noticed a crocodile with a distended belly. I don't know if any of you have seen if they do take out a wildebeest or a zebra on a crossing, whether or not you can see, in fact, if a crocodile has recently fed, if their stomachs are distended or not. Not anything, not something I've ever noticed. Just motionless, conserving energy, enjoying the warmth of the sun, making sure all of those past twitch muscles are in peak condition. Very still and serene. Even haven't seen so much as a twitch from any of them. Be interesting to know how sensitive to touch their skin is. I'm sure there are plenty of receptors there, but I'm just sitting here thinking, if you watched an impala or an antelope or a zebra, they're constantly flicking and twitching, flies disturbing them. I wonder how much sensation that they actually feel on that skin. Probably more than we give them credit for. Scan around for anything else of note. No water birds that I can see. Ah, some hippopotami. Lots of hippopotamuses this is. Plenty of them there. Wow, if anyone wants to count all of those bobbing heads, they are most welcome to do so. But interesting to wonder whether this is one enormous pod or just a couple of pods have come together. Should be one dominant male per pod. And on a river like this, of course, they will spread out. Dominant males will hold their own little stretch of the river. But what a lovely way to end the show. Unfortunately, we are out of time. And that is it for today's Africam show. Oh, and there's a little yawn just to tie everything together nicely. But yeah, it's been lovely. Lots of activity. Particularly enjoyed that lesser kudu. Lovely to see the giraffes having a drink. But thank you, everybody, for joining us, for all of your questions and comments, as always. And I will speak to you all again on Thursday during Wild Moments. But enjoy the rest of your days, whatever your plans may be, and we will catch up with you again very, very soon.